Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, we are going to be talking about the decisions that you make in PMDD, and I'm so excited to talk about this because I've really been in this journey with myself and just making so many decisions about my life. I really had to make a lot of decisions because remember when I had to break up with my ex-PMDD partner about, what's it been? I think it's been like 8 months now. We're in July. Yeah, about 8 months since I filed for divorce. And I had to make so many life decisions because before, when I was with my partner, I had all of my decisions being made by the fact that we were going to be together forever. I had all of the decisions made about where I was going to move, because I'm in California right now, and I was supposed to move to Panama specifically. That's where my mom's side of the family is from. And I had this plan to move to Panama, move abroad for so long. It's been so many years. I actually remember being in other relationships prior to my partner and talking to them from the beginning and saying, my plan is to move to Panama. My plan is to go there, live there, and just, enjoy my life. Because after you've worked for so long, I feel like you deserve to just be in a place where you're just enjoying life. And that was my plan. And then when we broke up, something broke in me. And I'm gonna try to say this without crying, but I'm probably going to start crying because something broke within me during that breakup that caused me to feel like I didn't know what decision to make because I didn't have a plan B. I didn't have a plan B outside of being with my partner. I planned to be with him forever. I planned to build this life that we had forever. And now I'm being put in positions where I'm having to make these life plans and these life decisions about what to do. And I didn't have anybody even to bounce it off of. I didn't have somebody to talk to about it and saying, like, oh, I'm going to do this or, oh, I'm going to do that. And what's really hard is when you go into PMDD, you start to feel like you want that person. You want to feel that closeness of knowing that you have somebody else to talk to that is, in conjunction, like they're in alignment with your plan. And I think that's one of the biggest benefits of being in a relationship when you're in PMDD, because when you're spiraling in your brain and you're really thinking about, should I do this? Should I do that? All of these things, you have someone to talk to. And I remember the first couple of months when I had to make these decisions, I didn't have anybody to talk to. And it made me feel so alone. And it made me feel so confused. And you're already in PMDD where you're feeling like you're in the midst of confusion. You're already in that place where you're feeling like you don't know what to do. And when you don't have somebody else to kind of help you through that process, it makes you feel confused even more. It makes you feel like you're alone even more. So when I went to make these decisions about where I was going to move, where I was going to live, like all of these things, I remember thinking to myself, what is my new vision for my life? Because what I was going off before in my PMDD relationship was, what is the vision for my relationship? What does my partner want? What do I want? What kind of life do we want to live? And now that I'm single, it was just a situation where it was like, it's only me. Like it's only me to make these decisions with, and me and God, of course, because I did like I've delved so much into just a lot of prayer, a lot of reflection, a lot of like, what am I supposed to do? And what I was really recognizing was the most, and I heard this message and it was so on point. It was the most strategic decisions you will ever make in your life will come out of your suffering. The decisions that you make when you're suffering in PMDD will really change the direction of your life. And I think so many times we don't really understand that, right? We make these impulsive decisions, and I'm guilty of this too, which is why I can talk to you about it. I make really impulsive decisions when I'm in PMDD. So that's the first thing that I had to recognize. And I had to call myself out on it and really become really self-aware about what are the things that I do in PMDD that I really want to change about myself. What are the things that I do in PMDD that are really harming my relationships with anyone? And one of the things that I do only really, well, no. Okay, so when I'm in PMDD, I make impulsive decisions. When I'm in my follicular phase and in my good days, I make spontaneous decisions. So let me tell you the difference between the two. A spontaneous decision is one that is not really going to cause you harm, but you just make that decision last minute and it's just like, oh, okay, I'm going to go here. I've done that so many times where I'm driving and it's like, oh, I'm going to stop at this store. Or I'll be like, oh, I'm going to go on this vacation because I'd love to travel. So I've made spontaneous decisions. That's not harmful. Impulsive decisions that I tend to make in relationships is blocking. Block, 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 block. Cutting people off is one of my impulsive things that I do when I'm in PMDD. I am known for this because it's like stranger danger. You know, I'm very big with consistency. I'm very big with patterns. I'm a very habit-based person. So when your character starts to switch up on me and I start to feel like you're not authentic, then I also get to this place where I'm going to do lives after I finish recording the podcast, babe. I'm going to do lives once I'm done. So when I get into this place of feeling like I want to make an impulsive decision, it is going to be because I'm like, oh, I'm not even thinking about the consequence. So when you're in this place, it's so dangerous because you're not making a decision with the end in mind. And I know we've been in that place so many times in PMDD where you just blasted off and said something to your partner. You blasted off and done something to your partner in reaction to something that they've said and done. And you really get to this place where you're feeling justified in the moment because you're so offended, you're so angry. What I want you to know is when you're making decisions that are impulsive in PMDD, if they're coming out of emotion, if they are coming out of emotion, they're going to cause damage to your PMDD relationship because you're so hyped up on those emotions and you feel so justified in the moment. You don't even feel bad about it. When you're in this place, you don't feel bad about what you're saying to your partner. You don't feel bad about blocking them. You don't feel bad about not turning off your location on your phone. You don't feel bad about saying things to them that is below the belt. You don't feel bad about calling them names. You don't feel bad about anything because you're so engulfed in the emotions that you're feeling, that's all that matters to you in the moment. And PMDD will convince you to act on that. They're like, oh, all you need to do is do this in the moment. It wants you to do it now, 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 now. So what I notice is I cannot make decisions that are rushed, that are impulsive, and not suffer the consequences. I have made decisions that are impulsive and in the moment, and I've regretted them 100% of the time. 99% of the time. There's been times where I've like cut off people that deserve to be cut off. So I didn't really regret it, but I just regretted the way that I did it. And what happens is after the fact, you get that level of self-awareness to where you're able to look back. And I think being that you have the ability to look back on situations and see how you could have handled the situation, that's what gives you the pain of regret. That's what gives you that kind of like, I should have never made that decision. I should have never said that. I should have never done that. I should have never, used the information that they gave me and went below the belt. And you feel this level of regret. And the thing about regret is you can't go back in time and change it. Like there's nothing you could do. Once you've done it, that's it. And so you end up getting into this place of just feeling like, well, what can I do now? So what I am going to bring you up here. Can I bring you up here? I hope it doesn't press any buttons. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So what I also want to talk about when it comes to decision making, one of the things that I really had to understand is, the next phase of my life is going to greatly be defined by the decisions I make right now in my PMDD journey. Like what decisions I make, who I choose to allow in my space, who I choose to allow in my life is going to impact the next season of my life. So like when I think about like where I'm going, where I'm going to be, I can't just look at getting a partner right now who fits into my lifestyle right now. When I decide to move abroad, which I am going to do, move outside of the country, I have to choose a partner whose lifestyle mirrors the one that I desire to live. Like I can't make decisions for right now. And I think a lot of times when we get into PMDD, we're making decisions for right now. It's like, I'm breaking up with you. You're not thinking about the impact that it's going to have on your children. You're not thinking about the impact that it's going to have on your finances. You're not thinking about how you're burnt out right now and you're about to let go of a partner that is helping you. Granted, they may not be helping you like to the extent that you would like them to, but take away that support and see what that looks like. I've had so many private clients that complain to me about things that their partner does. And I say to you, and I really say to them, take away their support and see how you feel. And I know what you think, I can do it on my own. I used to think that too. And I can. It's not I can think, I know I can do it on my own. But it is absolutely going to be harder. And if you're denying that that's true, if you're making it seem like you're going to be so much better off, you're going to be suffering if you're choosing to do things by yourself. When you start to isolate, and I was so guilty of this, I was so guilty of putting myself in isolation. Isolation leads to suffering. Isolation leads to helplessness. Isolation leads to you making decisions that are not wise for you because you don't have anybody to kind of like talk to about it. You only have your point of view. You don't have anybody that's from the outside looking in and was like, hey, I know that you want to make this decision, but I don't really think that it's good for you because of this. I know that you want to make this decision while you're in PMDD, but I really don't think that you should do it because of this. When they give you the explanation of what the because of this is, then you have the opportunity to make a decision with more knowledge than just your own. So if you're in PMDD and you're in that place of really isolating yourself to where you're making all the decisions by yourself, that's a dangerous place to be because you're not getting that outside perspective because PMDD will convince you that your way is the best way. What you're feeling about your partner is the way that your partner is. The way that you're feeling your partner is offending you and they're doing it on purpose. If you're feeling like that they're being malicious, your PMDD brain is going to absolutely agree with that. It's going to feed into that. It's going to be like, yeah, they're doing it on purpose. They're causing you to suffer on purpose. I remember being convinced of that. I was like, I am convinced that my partner is trying to cause me to suffer because they're doing this, 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 this. And it was like this laundry list of things. And was that always true? Absolutely not. A lot of times your partner goes through and does things that have everything to do with them and nothing to do with you. But you have this propensity of taking it personally. You have this propensity of taking something that your partner is doing and turn it into a personal attack. You're turning into, I am personally attacking, or my partner is personally attacking me by doing this thing because it's causing you to suffer. Just because something that your partner is doing is causing you to suffer doesn't mean that they're being malicious with it. Doesn't mean that they're trying to hurt you. Doesn't mean that they're trying to harm you. They just may be existing. And I use this example all the time. When my partner was snoring, he was just snoring. But when I got into PMDD, it really caused me to suffer because I really had that misophonia, which is that sensitivity to noise. So then it can become the lack of sleep, then the fatigue, and with the fatigue came the irritability and all of these things. And the whole time I'm thinking, wow, he really is just not going to let me sleep, huh? He's really causing me to suffer. He knows that I need sleep and he knows this. And I made up the story in my mind of what I thought my partner was doing when he was just sleeping. Like, think about that. I would make decisions about what I was going to do in my relationship based off of suffering off of not being able to sleep. And when you're in that place of irritability and rage and all of these things, and you make those permanent decisions about your relationship, you're absolutely going to regret it later on. Because guess what? When you get yourself a nap, when you get into your follicular phase, you're not going to feel that way anymore. And that's the thing about feelings. Feelings come and go, especially when you're in PMDD, because it's so cyclical. They're coming and they're going. But you're like in this place of feeling like it's permanent. No feelings are permanent, good or bad. As good as you feel about your partner in your follicular phase, when you're in your good days, when you're not in PMDD, you can feel the complete opposite. You can feel the complete opposite when you go into PMDD. I've had days where I've gone from one day I was completely in love with my partner when I was in my ovulation, and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember why I'm with them. I'm so in love with them. Immediately getting into PMDD and being completely disgusted. So why would I make decisions based off of my feelings when they're so fickle, up and down? When emotions are up and down like that, they come and go. But here's what I want you to know. Feelings come and go, but the decisions that you make last. I'm going to repeat that. Feelings come and go, especially when you're in PMDD, but the decisions that you make will last. If you're deciding to mistreat your partner because you're feeling off, you're feeling moody, you're feeling irritable, the things that you say to your partner are going to stick. And when they try to bring them up and they say, I'm offended because you said this, and I'm offended because you said that, but you're like, oh, I don't feel that way anymore. You may not feel that way anymore, but the words that you said stuck with your partner. And so now they're in their feelings. And now you have to repair that. So when you get to this place in your life where you're noticing a pattern of emotions in PMDD, I would say to really analyze, be self-aware and analyze what are the feelings that are coming up for you when you're in PMDD that are causing the most damage in your relationship. I do this with my private clients all the time. And for me, I know for a fact, my ego will come out and say, you deserve better than this. You shouldn't be with somebody that treats you like this. And then there's this level of bitterness and resentment and offense. Those are my main characters that come out when I'm in PMDD. And for you, I know for a lot of my private clients, it's rejection sensitivity. Notice the pattern. Every month you go into PMDD, you feel rejected, you have rejection sensitivity. Every month in PMDD, you get offended by something your partner does. Think of it like a symptom. Don't think of it like, oh, my partner is doing this to cause me to suffer. Think of this as a symptom that happens every single time I go into PMDD, because I had to be self-aware about that, because I don't want to be making decisions based off of these cyclical emotions that I'm feeling and then regret it later on. It is that pain of regret because you made a decision based off of feelings that may or may not even be there anymore. So what does that mean? How do I heal myself from that? And I remember being towards the end of my PMDD relationship and really coming to terms with, how does my partner cause me the most suffering? Or how do I perceive my suffering being caused? And the biggest thing is me getting offended. That's always been my biggest thing. Once I'm offended, I can cut you off. Once I'm offended, I can cut you off and be done with you, because I will make up a story in my mind as to why you did what you did and make myself feel like I don't deserve to be with someone that treated me like that. So when I noticed that this was a cyclical pattern, this is a cyclical thing, what can I do about it? And if you're the same way like me, where you're like, yeah, I get offended every month, what can you do about it? I cannot let my actions be a reflection of my emotions. I'm going to repeat that again. These are mantras. Whenever I say I'm going to repeat that again, I'm giving you mantras. And these mantras are what you tell yourself when you're feeling offended or when you're feeling whatever. I cannot let my actions and behaviors reflect my emotions, because they're not sustainable. They're not consistent. They change up and down. This is why a lot of times you're able to be super loving to your partner and then be super distant. Be super loving and then shut down on them. Be super loving. And this is the confusion that your partner goes through, because they're like, you were just loving. You were just leaning in. You were just all of these things. And then now you want nothing to do with me. And they'll literally say to me, Dr. Rose, I don't think she even wants to be with me. And so when you're in PMDD and you hear that and you're like, I don't even think she wants to be with me, you don't even try to stop it. You're like, well, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. Versus when you hear it in your follicular days, you may be like, oh my gosh, no, babe, I love you. Like, of course I want to be with you. Of course I want this relationship. Of course I want us to work. So you see how it's so cyclical, like it's so up and down. So one minute you're willing to validate their feelings, and the next minute you don't have anything to say because you're in PMDD and the ego is there. And it's like, well, that's their problem. I don't know what to tell them. I hope they get it together. So what I want you to do when you're recognizing that your decisions are being impacted by your ups and down moods, don't lean into offense. Don't lean into bitterness. Don't lean into resentment. Don't lean into this. Don't lean into when you're feeling offended, because then your actions won't reflect that. Thanks, Sophie and Caesar, for the follow. Don't lean into that. Because the issues come when you're leaning into how your partner offended you. Because that's when the stories come. That's when you start telling yourself something in your mind, and you're not even verifying with your partner whether what you're thinking in your mind is true. How many times have you been there when you start treating your partner differently and you've not even had a conversation with them? Like they said something to you and they're like, hey, are you okay? Because they're noticing your mood shifted, and you're like, I'm fine. You're recognizing that you're fine, or you're saying that you're fine because you've already made your mind up. You don't even need them to confirm it. You're like, I'm good. And you're not even giving them a chance to convince you otherwise, for them to tell you, babe, no, I didn't mean it like that. Like, I didn't mean it like that. Like, I understand that you're taking it that way, but I didn't mean it like that. You're making decisions off of what is that saying? Don't make permanent decisions off of temporary emotions. Everything that we have in PMDD is temporary. Everything that we experience in PMDD is temporary. And I want you to really understand that. Nothing lasts. As good as you feel, as bad as you feel, like you may have a good day in PMDD and then the next day could be horrible. But you have to understand that, and it's not your fault. What do I always say? PMDD is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to manage in your relationship. I know a lot of times we get into those places and it's like, it's not my fault that I have to heal something that I didn't ask for. None of us asked for this. Nobody would want this. Nobody would want this. But what I want you to know that you do have the power to do, because PMDD makes you feel powerless. You have the power to choose which emotions you want to lean into. And what I would say is focus on the positive things. Choose to focus on what is good. Choose to focus on what makes you feel good in your relationship. If you know that if you choose to focus on that offense, that thing that your partner did to piss you off, it's just going to make you feel more and more pissed off with your partner. More and more pissed off with your partner until you're feeling like that there's nothing that you can really do about it. So I really don't want you to get into that place of feeling like I just have to be like a roller coaster and just choose to like just go with whatever comes at me. Whatever thought comes in my mind, I have to react to it. Absolutely not. That is a dangerous thing to do. You do not react to every single thought that goes into your mind, because our thoughts create our emotions. I want you to observe your thoughts. There's been times when you learn how to do this, when you learn this realm of self-awareness, and this is what I teach my private clients. And I'm also teaching in my private group, and the link is going to be in my bio. It's called Trauma Transformations. I'm going to be teaching you tools on how to rewire your PMDD brain, completely free for you to join. So if it's something that you want, just DM me if you can't find the link. But what you're going to be doing is like choosing which emotions that you want to go into. Choosing what emotions, like if your partner made you feel horrible, why would you want to focus on that? Why would you want to focus on that? You're going to feel like, why am I even in this relationship? Why am I even here? Why should I be here? I deserve better. I should just be single. I should be with somebody else. I should let them be with somebody else. That's the rabbit hole that is going to take you down. And here's what I want you to know about PMDD. It's cyclical. So you're going to be having these same cycles again and again, cycles of thoughts. And that's why I say it's the trick of PMDD. PMDD doesn't give you any new tricks. It literally takes the negative thoughts and puts them on repeat. And we fall for it every single month. And it's like, I feel this way about my partner. It's like, no, you're letting PMDD win. Because here's what PMDD does that's so sneaky. That's why I say it tricks you, is it takes actual facts, actual things, that your partner has done, actual things that they've done, and then creates a story in your mind about why they did it. Actual things that they've done and said. So it's not like PMDD doesn't really use a lot of like complete lies. It'll use intrusive thoughts where it's add-ons, but it's not like it's making up an imaginary story and it's like, oh, your partner busted out your windows in your car. It's like, no, that's if that thought came into your head, you would be like, I know that's a lie because my partner didn't bust out the windows in my car. But if your PMDD brain said your partner doesn't appreciate you, and you do something for your partner and your partner doesn't say thank you, then immediately PMDD is going to grab that and be like, see, I told you they don't appreciate you. Look at all you do. If you did this for somebody else, you would have so much more appreciation. If you did this for somebody else, you would feel so much more love, but they don't even care. They just walked in the house. They didn't even say anything about the thing that you did for them. Where in reality, it could be that your partner didn't even recognize the thing that you did yet. So it's not that they're intentionally not appreciating you. It's that maybe they just didn't notice it. But by the time your partner interacts with you, you're already pissed off because your PMDD brain is telling you that you're not appreciated. And you're making decisions on how you interact with them based off of that thought that's going on in your mind. So now when they go to hug you, when they go to kiss you, you're like, you're making decisions based off of that emotion. And so what really lends into a lot of times when you're in PMDD and you feel like, how many times have you been in PMDD and you feel like I'm going crazy? I feel like I'm going crazy. There's so many thoughts that are going on in my mind. There's so many thoughts that are going on in my mind. So many thoughts are going on in your mind and you're feeling like, I don't know what's real. I don't know what's not real. Here's what the feeling of feeling crazy in your PMDD brain does. It is the insanity. And what does that mean is you're seeing this pattern that's going on in your relationship again and again and again, and you're not doing anything differently. You're arguing with them every single month. You're fighting with them every single month. And then you're just assuming that magically one day you're just going to stop. You're assuming that magically one day things are just going to get better. You're assuming that ignoring your problems are going to make them go away. Like, oh, maybe if I just pretend like, everything's great, then everything will be great. Maybe if I pretend. Because a lot of times I remember my ex-partner used to do that, wanting to live in the land of like nothing happened, like this fantasy land. Like, let's go out, let's be with people, let's make these beautiful selfies, let's pretend like everything's great, when really you have a problem with your partner. You have a problem with what they said. You have a problem with what they've done, but you're in this place of not wanting to bring it up because you're feeling like every single time that you bring it up, it turns into a fight. So then you completely avoid it. So what this means is when you're feeling like you're going crazy because you're putting yourself in the same amount of pain again and again and again. So the insanity is you're doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. Some of you are joyfully doing the same thing. Like every time you go into PMDD or every single time you have issues in your relationship, you're not bringing it up. We're fine. We're totally fine. You're brushing over it. Or, if I go to sleep, I wake up in the morning and I'm just going to act like nothing happened. I think that's what my biggest pet peeve is a lot of times is when I know that there's something bothering you and then you're just not saying what's bothering you, but you're making it seem like there's nothing bothering you. So you almost get gaslit into that realm of like, oh, your partner's like, oh, everything's fine, babe. And you're like, is there something going on? Is the vibe off? Because I'm really big with vibes. And so you get into this place of trying to address it because in my mind, I just want to address it so that we can move on. And then they're in this place of like, nothing's wrong with me. How many times do your partner send that to you? Nothing's wrong. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's a difference between avoiding your problems and saying that you're just not ready to talk about it at the moment. There's a distinct difference. I'm all for if you tell your partner there is something wrong, okay, you're not crazy, but I just don't want to talk about it right now. I don't have it in me to talk about it right now. Can we talk about it tomorrow at 6:00? Like maybe it's just not a good time. Maybe you don't have the amount of time that it would take to really get it out and you don't want to rush and talk about it. Or maybe you're about to go into a public atmosphere and you don't want it to come out around friends or whatever your reasoning is, at least you're admitting it. And you're admitting it and saying, hey, something is bothering me. You're right. I'm off right now, but can we talk about it tomorrow? They're more likely to let it go than for you to be in that la la land of being like, everything's fine, everything's fine. That's that insanity that's going on. And when you're in PMDD, it's not healthy to do because you'll start to think that that's a coping mechanism. And you'll start to think like, oh, we're doing really, really good because we haven't argued. You're doing really, really good, and you haven't argued because you're not addressing any of the issues that you have in your PMDD relationship. So, of course, you're doing really, really good. You're living in a fantasy land. You're not living in reality. You're living in that land of avoiding it. So, of course, you're doing great. It's like the Kardashians, like, you're doing great, sweetie. Like, of course, you're doing great because you're avoiding every single issue that you have. But you can only avoid your triggers, but for so long. Thank you. You can only avoid your issues, but for so long. And what happens is when you start to hold in those triggers that you have, you're holding them in, you're holding them in, you're holding them in, you hold them in until you can't hold them in any longer. And then when you get to that place where you can't hold them in any longer, guess what happens? You go off on PMDD rage. And then it's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I said this. I can believe it. Because how long were you feeling triggered by your partner? How long? How many days? So a lot of times this happens around day 7 of PMDD because you've gone days and days and days of holding it in and you're brushing it up. You're telling yourself, I could do this. I could hold this in. And I know what you're feeling because you're feeling like you're doing it for a good reason. Like it's a good thing that we're not arguing. Bring your issues to the forefront as soon as possible before you get into that realm of making a decision based off of holding in those triggers. When you're holding in those triggers for so long and you start making decisions, I've had clients that have literally packed their bags and their partner has no idea what's going on. And then one day they just come out with their bags packed, already have a whole nother apartment, already ready to move the kids, already ready to move the dogs, all these things, because in your mind, you've been holding in these triggers and you make a decision to exit the relationship based off of all of the things that you've been ruminating about in your brain. And your partner's like, what are you talking about? And then you're like, no, it's like, because the ego is there. The ego is like, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you. How many times have you been like that with your partner when you're in PMDD? It's like, if I have to tell you, then I guess you don't really care about me. If you start saying statements like that, if you, then I, then it's a lie. You don't have the ability to make up what is real and what is not real. You can't say, if you do this, then this means you don't love me. I have had so many exes that do that. And I'm like, that's not true because you don't have the ability to tell me what it's like for me to be loving towards you. You don't have the ability to tell your partner, if you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. If you loved me, you would do this. Who's saying that? You are saying that. You are making a decision based off of a condition that you've programmed in your mind. That's the way your brain works. That doesn't mean that that's the way your partner's brain works. So why are you making a decision about your relationship based off of a programming that's only in your brain? Your partner can very much love you and do things that offend you. I'm going to repeat that. Your partner can very much love you, care about you, adore you, and still do things that offend you, not on purpose. But because you've made up that decision in your mind, oh, if you do this, this must mean this. Says who? Stop making those decisions based off of the programming in your brain. So again, if this is something that you know that you need help with, I'm having that free group called Trauma Transformations. If you know that your PMDD has become really, really traumatic, it's completely free. It's open to the public, not even individuals that have PMDD. But I really wanted to open it up to my community because I feel like we're not really understanding how traumatic PMDD is, how cyclical it is. And it begins on August the 7th at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time in the US. And it's open to you. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. If you can't find the link, just DM me. But I want you to just, if you can't take away anything else from this episode, what I want you to understand is do not make decisions about your PMDD relationships when you are in those temporary emotions that are fluctuating up and down, up and down, up and down. You're in, you're out, you're all over the place. We've all been there where we're all over the place. You do not have to make a decision. Your PMDD brain is rushing you into saying, you need to do this, no, you don't. Take the time, make the decision. Here's how you know when to make a decision in your PMDD relationship. And I'm going to leave you with this. You make a decision in your PMDD relationship when you have peace. When you have peace in your mind, you have clarity in your mind, there is no chaos, there is no confusion, then you make a decision. That's the way I've made all of my decisions that I haven't regretted later on, is when I've been in a place of peace. Because I'm not going back and forth and fighting, should I do this? If you're in that place and you're about to break up, but you don't know if you should break up, then don't break up. If you're going to break up with your partner, then I want you to have peace about it. You need to be in a place where there's no questions. There's no second guessing. If there's second guessing, you may not be making the right decision. And you don't want to have that pain of regret that we talked about. Because there's a lot of things that you can say to your partner. There's a lot of things that you can do that you cannot undo. It sticks with them. And that's the traumatic way about it. It sticks with them long after you've made the comment, long after you've done the action. It sticks with them. So if this is something that you know that you need help with, go inlovewithpmdd.com, get those counseling sessions. Make sure that you join this group. This is the only time I'm joining this group. That's free. Okay, this is the only time I'm doing this group. It's called Trauma Transformations. It's going to help you rewire your PMDD brain and give you those tools of what you need to do when you're in those moments and you're feeling like there's chaos and confusion. I don't know what to do with my relationship, Dr. Rose. I don't want to regret it later on. Go join that group so that you can get the help that you need in your PMDD relationship. So until next time, we got this. Love you. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.